On Sunday, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin said the Republican tax plan will almost certainly benefit America's middle-income families. But data from the Joint Committee on Taxation says the House version of the tax plan will deliver 80% of cuts to corporations, businesses, and the wealthy. The Senate has yet to pass its version of the tax plan. For more on this, let's go now to our political panel for the night. John Loudon, former Missouri state senator, and Susan Jarrick, former federal prosecutor. Thank you for being here tonight, folks. Senator Loudon, let's start with you here. The Nonpartisan Tax Policy Center is now the third outside group to conclude that the Republican Senate tax bill would add a massive $1.3 trillion deficit to the national debt over the course of the next decade. It will pump revenues up by approximately $169 billion in the same time. Will they get this thing through before Christmas?
I do think we will get a bill, and I do have to caution everybody to pay attention to not dynamic numbers and not static numbers. When they're talking about adding to the deficit, they're not factoring in the expected boost to the economy. And remember, there are two portions of this thing. We want economic growth. That's the main impetus. As much as we want tax cuts, people want a little extra money in their pockets. But the big impact is going to come for the lower middle class, the blue-collar worker, and those mid-level people that are going to see the desperately needed job creation. What's better, a little tax cut, a little more money in your pocket, or that next awesome job that you've been desperately waiting for through the last 8 years of Obama?
Well, Susan, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin argues that it'll bring in roughly $2.5 trillion in revenues over the next 10 years, yet there will be the removal of Obamacare individual mandates. The CBO says this will exacerbate the deficit. What will happen to health care if the Obama individual care mandate goes away? Does this effectively kill Obamacare as we know it?
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent question. The Republicans have 6 big problems, and of course it's the 6 senators, 2 of whom, Murkowski and Susan Collins, care very much about what you just referenced in terms of health care. But I think a bigger question that has to be asked that the senator just referenced this will be a boom to the economy, but our president tweets every day about how wonderful the economy is doing, how unemployment is at an all-time low, the stock market is roaring. So why is this even necessary? Why do we need a stimulus at this point in time? We don't. And the American public is on to the fact that this really delivers more money into the pockets of those who do not need it, Donald Trump and the billionaire and millionaire class in America, rather than the middle class. They're sort of kind of like one of those teaser interest rates that a lot of credit cards offer. It looks good, right, in the beginning, but over time for the middle and lower classes, as the senator references, it phases out. The benefits and cuts to the wealthier Americans does not. So this is a foolish idea for the Republican Party, and they've got too many other large problems looming. They can't afford to fail, and if they're going to succeed, they better deliver what they're promising, and simply as constituted, they are not.
Senator Loudon, I'll let you respond to that before we move on.
Yeah, first of all, the mandate that you have health insurance, is just un-American. It's so anathema to what we stand for. So the savings reaped from not requiring people to buy a private product, forcing people to buy a private product is just wrong. So getting rid of that is just a morally right thing to do. The fact that it helps our deficit question by saving the federal government a lot of money for the subsidies is awesome. And as far as the tired rhetoric of saying that all this money is going to the rich, it's proportional. The left has set up a progressive tax system, so when you cut taxes, the people at the top who are paying more have the same percentage reduction, but it's a higher dollar amount because it's part of that progressive tax scheme. So that shot, it completely misses the point that we are doing corporate. The biggest part of this is the corporate tax reduction that's going to lead to job creation. And if you say the economy is roaring and it's good enough, we don't need to do anything, talk to the people out there who are still looking for work. There are a lot of people still looking for work, and we need to help them.
I'd like to switch gears a little bit here. Susan, going over to you, a young woman, a fan of Senator Al Franken. He's got another accuser. She came forward today. She alleges that Franken groped her from behind as he posed for a photo with her shortly after he was elected to office. Are we looking at the potential downfall of Al Franken here?
Absolutely, I think we are, and I think we're looking at the potential downfall of any person. In this case, and in most cases, we hear about male persons, elected officials, who engage in similarly inappropriate behavior. And yeah, you know, I'm a registered Democrat, but I don't condone this, whether they're Democrat, Republican, Green Party, Independent, I don't care. This shouldn't be a partisan issue. And the same can be said, of course, for the election in Alabama. This shouldn't be about partisan politics. This should be about ethics, morality, and none of us discussing this or in the House and Senate should be, in my opinion, saying otherwise. But yeah, I think it portends bad things for Mr. Franken. I can tell you, as a former sex crimes prosecutor, usually, now this is not a sex crime, sexual harassment, it's misconduct, but usually it doesn't happen in a vacuum. Usually there's not just one incident. Usually it's part of a pattern. And we're seeing that with, unfortunately, all of these individuals,
right,
whether they're House, Senate, or Mr. Moore in Alabama.
Right. Senator Loudon, your thoughts on that?
You know what? I applaud the prosecutor because that is about as important work as anything going after sexual predators. I'm the father of 5 kids. I actually rewrote all the sexual predator laws in Missouri, so I am right with you. And I completely agree with you. And you're right. Thank you. And thank you for what you do. I think what's missing, and absolutely recidivism is a huge issue, which is why the Judge Moore thing doesn't really wash, because everybody's talking about alleged acts 30 years ago. If Roy Moore was a serial predator, we'd have an act 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 5 years ago, last year. All that they're talking about, these are all allegations 30 plus years ago. And whereas with Senator Franken, we're talking about something he's like doing now. I mean, violating a woman asleep. That is horrible. It's on camera. And if anybody ought to be removed, it's him. Judge Moore, there is a statute of limitations, as the prosecutor understands. Even if any of these cases was even 5 years old, it would be a little more credible. But that they're pulling out 30-year-old cases, not only in this election, but after the primary. So let him be the primary winner, then go after him to try to knock him out in the general. That timing is the thing that's troubling most Alabamians. I lived in Alabama. They're smart people, and they can do that math. This looks fishy.
Susan, I'll give you the last word tonight.
Hold on. Yeah, I have to jump in. You know, these types of incidents, sex crimes and otherwise, do not happen, you know, in the middle of Union Square at high noon on a busy shopping day. They happen between 2 people, a predator and the victim. It matters not, Senator, and I hope you would agree, whether a sexual assault on a minor, a 14-year-old child, because that's what she was, a child in the eyes of the law, happened 5 years ago or 30 years ago. There are reasons why you may have come across information like this in your travels, rewriting the laws you reference. There are reasons why children and adult women do not disclose. The number one being fear, and secondary to that is shame. The fact is,
yes,
we have not, she said, excuse me, Senator, we have 9 women now, 9 women saying that he engaged in similar conduct. We have his own statement. We have a restraining order at a mall. This man is unfit for the Senate. He's unfit to be a judge. He's unfit to be a prosecutor. He's an embarrassment. And God help the state of Alabama, sir.
There is no state law past 26 years. We allow you 26 years to bring your claim. We're not talking about a criminal prosecution,
Senator. We're not talking about a criminal prosecution. We're talking about an ethics and morality issue and whether he's fit to serve, and he's not.
26 years.
He's not.
It's 26 years to let victims
we got to leave it right there. I'm sorry to cut you guys off in the middle of this heated debate. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and insight with us. John Loudon and Susan Jarrick, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.